Hey guys, it's Kate, and in this video I will show you how to draw a dog's eye with soft pastels on velour paper. I start by sketching out the eye, measuring the angles and proportions. I'm using a Derwent dark charcoal pencil as it is easy to correct if need be, and it will not leave any marks when I layer over it with pastels. This is kind of a map for me to distinguish the light areas and the dark ones, as well as to observe the skull structure underneath. As this is an eye of a dachshund, the fur on the head is very short and the structure of the bones and muscles is pronounced. Of course, there are other breeds of dogs that have hairy faces, but I will leave those for another tutorial. Next, I take Panpastels and block in the light areas with turquoise. To be honest, I just got the Panpastel set and had to try it out. That's the blocking in with Panpastels. I could have absolutely done it with soft pastels instead. I am also adding the blue into the highlight of the iris. Over the blue, I pass over with a neutral gray Panpastel, everywhere except for the highlights of the eye. This will knock back the blue, but it will still be perceivable through the gray. I am blocking in the brow bit and the iris around the pupil with burnt sienna and red iron oxide. I add the pupil and the darker area around the pupil with the black. Then I start blocking in all the dark parts with the same black Panpastel. With yellow ochre, I lighten up the iris and the brow. Once again, I pass over the darkest areas to create enough contrast. With a yellow ochre soft pastel, I am adding strokes to the iris. As the light passes through the highlight in the top part of the eye, it will lighten up the area right opposite. So I want to make the bottom part of the eye lighter. As I add layers, I constantly rub them into the paper. This is one of the peculiar things about velour, which allows you to layer more pastel over the existing layers because the pastel particles get kind of absorbed by the tooth of the paper. With a brown, I go over the dark parts of the eye. I'm warming it up with a red-brown pastel. This will also help me create the texture of the iris. I add the same color to the tear duct. I make the pupil stronger with the soft black pastel and go over the darkest parts around the iris and right around the pupil itself. I'm adding some light to the bottom of the iris and continue to build up the texture, alternating between the colors. The part to the left of the iris is not black, so I put my brown in it. With a very soft schminky white, I add the brightest highlight. When you add highlights, make sure you observe the shape and all the colors that are present in the highlight. They will depend on the surroundings, and in this case I want the fur and the highlights to reflect the sky. Thus I will use different blues and grays and white for the very intense part of the highlight. I also add the blue on the right border of the iris as I see it in the reference. In this photo I can see the white of the dog's eye. The most important thing to remember when painting or drawing the white of the eye is that it will never be white. I am using a great pastel, light gray in this case. I'm adding the lighter reflections on the tear duct and a lighter shade of gray blue on the left side of the iris. I'm adding the shadow of the eyelashes on the upper part of the eye. Now I'm outlining the bottom part of the eye with a warmer gray in the area of the skin, and then add highlights with a lighter shade of gray. With the same grays, I go over the top part of the eye and the area of the skin. Even though this is an area with very few hairs in it, I still make the marks in the direction of the hair growth. With a rusty red, I go over the brow part, creating hairs, and then I add the yellow ochre over it. With a purplish gray, I add more layers over the gray area. With different shades of blue, I'm starting to add colors to the black fur of the dog. I am adding some black Panpastel above the brow to create a more fleshed out study of this eye. With a black Conte, I create the fur texture, going in directions of the fur growth. With a light gray Rembrandt, I add a layer of strokes over the dark areas. With a black Kohinoor extra soft pastel, I start to build up the intense darks. With a lighter grey, I go over the lighter skin areas around the eye. I go back to my conte to blend the areas. Alternating between greys and blues, I create more fur texture layers. With a white and a light grey conte, I create fur texture in the lighter areas. With the same Derwent charcoal pencil, I add another layer of fur details, dragging the colors to blend the areas better. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you would like to see this tutorial in real time and narrated, you can find it on my Patreon channel, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel here on YouTube for more pastel tutorials and art tip videos. I will see you in the next video. Bye!